From WCI3 Plus, with your host, Kevin Lighty, this is Behind the Forecast.
Welcome in. You've made it back to another week. My name is Chief Meteorologist Kevin Lighty here at WCI3, and so excited to have you back here again. We talk weather, we go behind the forecast here, and we start off each show with a little bit of viral weather videos from the past week to keep you kind of up to date on some things going on, not just here locally, but across the country. So, video number one. How about this? A tornado. Where? Not in the United States. No, in England on July 21st. Yorkshire, England area had some rare damaging tornadoes, according to some local reports out there. Pretty rare for England to get tornadoes. They get, rain and storms and stuff like that all the time, but to get tornadoes out there, a little bit more rare for those folks. So funnel clouds there, North Yorkshire, according to the North Yorkshire weather updates. Never even knew there was such a thing. So there you go, guys. All right, let's roll up to video number two. And this one, not so great, of course, a little update to the Grand Canyon fire. So there was a big fire in the Grand Canyon. And a week after, it's called the Dragon Bravo fire. It exploded in size. The National Park Service sharing these images of the aftermath. Dozens of structures, including the North Rim Visitor Center, cabins, and the Grand Canyon Lodge were destroyed. Just, hate to see that. Such a beautiful area out there. Lightning caused this fire out there, which causes a lot of these wildfires and whatnot. Crews were trying to brave the high temperatures. Obviously, it's been hot as well. So Grand National Park in Arizona. So that's what it looked like. One of the structures there, kind of the before and afters there. I mean, those are such beautiful kind of things. You can see some of the fire retardant that was actually on some of those areas there of the cabin. So just a rough scene to see that. All right, let's go to video number three. And this is going to, we also do a little kind of space stuff here. I love space stuff. This is a Mars meteorite, 54-pound Martian meteorite. Here's the thing. It sold at auction for, all right, would you like to take a guess? Any guesses out there? Throw the guess out if you got somebody sitting in the room with you on how much this went for. How about $5.3 million? A rock that is from Mars, okay? One of the largest known pieces of Mars on Earth, roughly 70% larger than any other Martian meteorite discovered to date. The rock drew thousands of visitors during its pre-sale that sparked a 15-minute bidding war between some online phone bidders before the hammer fell for $5.3 million. How about that? To have that much money, right? All right, next up, we take you to, yet again, another fire. This in Spokane, Washington. Big fires out there, burning over 2,300 acres in Washington. The DNR says the fire was human-caused this time, so not lightning this time around, okay? Red Cross out there doing their thing to try to help out. You can see them spraying that fire retardant or bringing it down there from the planes. So there you go. Spokane, Washington, dealing with the heat out there here. So many areas with these wildfires here, it seems, as of late. All right. It's been hot here, right, folks? It's been hot. Here's a way to stay cool. And the kids got to stay cool by doing this. A little help from the old firefighters, some Tennessee firefighters, putting the fun into Fun Fest when they sprayed the kids. They're with water and a sweltering day of heat and humidity out there. The Kingston Fire Department helping out there with the water flow to help the kids stay cool as they're screaming and yelling and having just a good old time out there. So there you go. Way to go, firefighters. And thank you guys for your service. Okay. All right, guys. Coming up, we are going to talk communication strategy when it comes to weather warnings and just messaging in general with a U of I assistant professor. Kind of get into the weeds a little bit on how to best communicate weather threats and hazards. That is coming up after the break with more Behind the Forecast. Welcome back to Behind the Forecast. I am WCA3 Chief Meteorologist Kevin Lighty, and we are to the interview portion of the show here, and we are delighted to have in studio from the U of I, assistant professor over there, works a lot in communications with weather, which is obviously a very important thing, Joseph Trujillo-Falcon. How are you doing?
I'm doing wonderful. Thank you so much.
Well, I'm sure I butchered your name there, but I tried my best. I'll give it that much there. Thanks for joining us, coming out here to talk a little bit about weather and communication, which I said is so important here. So for people, give people a little bit of a background and kind of what you do at the U of I and kind of what you've been studying and researching and doing here during your time.
Yeah, well, I work in the Department of Climate, Meteorology, and Atmospheric Sciences and the Department of Communication. And so a true integration of both fields. I study how the public receives, understands, and responds to extreme weather threats. So I study a variety of hazards from tornadoes to hurricanes to wildfires, you name it. It's really been a true passion of mine just because I started off my career in the broadcast meteorology field, but got really curious about how the public responds to different warnings. I even noticed in my own family members, some of them wouldn't take it seriously, and I always was inspired to really make a difference to make sure that people stay safe at the end of the day, because that's our shared mission.
I love that, and let's just start out with that, because so I've been doing this 23 years myself on television, trying to communicate, whether it's a warning, communicate risks that people could endure in bad weather, and like you said, and you touched on it right off the top there. Why doesn't everybody heed the warnings? Why do people have a weird notion where it seems like it's a lot of, well, that's not going to happen to me? Have you found a lot of that in what you've kind of researched and done?
100%. There's a variety of factors that get in the way of effective warning response. It could be anything from the jargon in which warnings are presented in. Sometimes even meteorologists scratch their heads at the difference between watch warnings and advisories. Sometimes those plain language statements could really make a true difference. And then other times it's the way we personalize it. And I think this is where places like WCIA do a great job at, is being able to tailor it specifically locally does make a huge difference. Because sometimes people just receive a warning for a general county, but we know tornadoes, sometimes they only affect a very small area compared to other folks. And so it's the lack of personalization, sometimes the lack of understanding due to jargon. It also just really depends on what kind of hazard you've experienced before. For areas that haven't experienced tornadoes before, especially people that recently moved to a given area, or you're a tourist, you might not be familiar with, say, a hurricane if someone here in Champaign went to go to Florida for a vacation, not really knowing what to do. So there's a myriad of factors that really get in the way of it. And our job is to really tackle it head on and try to address how it looks like, because it looks like differently here than any other place. And so I think it's very effective to use that communication research to really deliver those impactful results to the public.
Have you found that there is a better messaging way, or a better way to get people to react, to understand the perceived threats that they could endure? Have you found some things that maybe that even I could do better potentially? I mean, I'm all ears.
Hey, I'm a pretty big fan of WCA. You guys do it really well. But there's 5 things that every warning message needs for it to be considered effective in research. And if we outline those 5 things in every single one, we can really get people to be motivated. Number 1 is outline the hazard. Not only what it is, but what its implications are. So a flood may not only result in rising waters, but also result to loss of property or also loss of life. You also have to outline the source. With so much misinformation being spread out nowadays, it's very important to address who is delivering this life-saving information. And then the location, getting as specific as you can. We can say, Champaign County, or we could say the Quad. That's really, really effective when it comes to that. And then protective action and guidance is really important as well. What should we be doing? Because it can get our attention, but if we don't know what to do with it, then we're not going to do anything. And last but not least, timing information. I feel like a lot of folks, and this is where broadcast meteorologists do such a wonderful job at. You're outlining it on the map, you're pointing out streets, and you're saying by this time you can leave your shelter. Not only the start, but the end time as well is just so effective. And so in research, we find that if you have those 5 characteristics in a warning message, it really statistically increases the chances of you taking protective action and taking more seriously. So when we've actually looked at other emergency responses, and even in California, we looked at all the wireless emergency alerts that are displayed on your phone over wildfires for over 2 years. A research team did in Albany, and they found that none of the messages had all 5 components in them. So even if we integrated them, we could really get people to get motivated to take action.
So people get their messaging in a lot of different forms these days. 30 years ago, it was TV and radio, you know what I mean? But now, like you said, it's all over the place. It's digitally, it's on the internet, it's on a phone. It's, I even think like PlayStation. Do PlayStations get like warnings out too now and stuff? Like people are consuming this in a lot of different ways. Yeah. What have you found interesting about how it's now spread out?
Yeah, it's such an interesting landscape to study, and it makes my job a lot more challenging too, because when we think about it, when sources were mainly distributed in sources like TV or radio, they always came from centralized sources, meaning it came from an authoritative source, someone that is a really fond expert of the topic and can deliver it from a top-bottom approach. But now, when we're starting to introduce social media and other digital platforms, well, we're starting to look more of a bottom-up approach, where you have non-experts now that are part of this information landscape. And with this evolving information landscape, it does introduce a lot more misinformation, but it also provides a new opportunity to engage folks that we might not have been able to reach with other methods from the past. And so it's a pro and a con, honestly. And looking at this new information landscape, even more recently, there's Facebook pages out there that say the world's going to explode tomorrow. Everybody watch out to get those clicks and likes.
That is my biggest, thing that we as meteorologists in our world of TV, and again, we do the TV thing, and a lot of TV meteorologists are trying to catch up almost to some of these bigger platforms where maybe it is just a guy that, is interested in weather, maybe he had a weather background, and now he's just on doing his digital stuff all the time, and there is a lot of good apples.
Right.
The problem is there are a few bad ones out there, and we constantly have to fight that miscommunication of weather hazards, I think. What do you think is kind of a solution to all of that? Because some of these pages, they get these huge numbers, and we go, what? And then I have to explain to my viewers who tag me, hey, I saw on Jimmy's weather page that we're going to have 37 inches of snow.
Right.
So what do you think about the landscape of all that and how meteorologists that are doing it for the good can combat that, but also, is there a way to fix that?
Yeah, no, 100%. And I think it digs down to how the public views credibility nowadays, because communication research shows that there's a lot of factors that go into credibility. It's your degree. It's also how personable you can be. It also is in the way you engage with a given individual, among many other factors. And so something that my research team is working to address this upcoming year is sending a nationwide survey to the American public and asking them, what is credibility to you, and how can we better increase that credibility for more reliable and more authoritative sources so that you can be able to trust them a lot better and not have this disconnect so that you can spot misinformation and be able to address it directly and those kinds of things. And so it really does fascinate me, when a lot of these other pages are getting so many clicks, there must be a reason for it. And we're using communication research to unravel those mysteries so we can tackle them more directly, because it is a problem. I've seen those pages where say it's 38 inches of snow fallen, and then they end up blaming the meteorologist when we never even had nothing to do with it. So it's honestly a huge, huge problem that our field is going to be addressing over the years to come.
So, people just have to, like you said, know the source, right? The source of where that information is coming from.
Yeah.
And do a little bit of research on what you're looking at, right? Because there's just so many places that people are getting things. Now, again, we're trying to capture, an audience here in TV that, and maybe you can talk a little bit about this, working at the U of I, working with students there. They don't follow the weather as closely as maybe our parents did. Do you feel that we need to do a better job trying to get them connected a little bit more to things? What can we do to get that younger audience that isn't in the communications of television anymore,
Right.
the traditional kind of things. How can we get some of those younger audiences, I guess, to be engaged with weather when it's bad?
Yeah, no, 100%. This is such a great point to bring up because we've actually done a nationwide survey for the last 5 years and asked the same question. What sources do you rely on for extreme weather information? And those younger generations are by large margins more flocking towards social media rather than TV or radio. But this does present us a new opportunity to present the weather. It's not the fact that they aren't craving the information, it's just that they're going to a completely different news source. And so you have folks out there that are craving that sort of information, and we just need to be able to find a way to present it. So here at the U of I, for example, I'm looking forward to teaching classes and not just teach folks how to present stuff on television, but there's a whole new field now called digital meteorology, where we're going to be teaching folks directly in classrooms how to present that information in new and very consumable ways. Just as much as there was and it still is in TV, there's still so many ways we can expand in digital platforms and get more experts in there. Because right now, TikTok and all these other social media pages are filled with a lot of influencers that sometimes may have some good intent, but since they don't know the thoroughness of the science, may sometimes get it wrong and spread misinformation on accident. So I'm a fond believer that we got to tackle it directly by including more scientists in these spaces. And with those training that we're doing here at the U of I, we're looking to address that head on.
That's really cool that you're doing that right here in our backyard here. You also had some experience at the NSSL.
Yes.
As well. Tell me a little bit about kind of what you did there and maybe explain to the folks what they do at the NSSL.
Yeah, the National Severe Storms Lab. If you guys saw Twisters this last summer, it was actually really funny. During my time there at NOAA, they were telling us that there was some cleaning crews that are going to be stopping by, and I saw these big cameras, and I was like, oh, it's not a cleaning crew. It's the Twisters gang. But yeah, no, in the National Severe Storms Lab, we advanced research on severe weather, and I spent 5 years there really understanding, working directly with the National Weather Service, the Storm Prediction Center. I was right at their doorstep, and we were working to advance risk communication products because they actually hired me for that same reason. They were saying our forecasts are very accurate. They're very, we're getting the science down to such a point, but right now we need to improve in how we actually reach the community and help them make sense of that information. And so during my time at NOAA, I really worked directly with these government agencies to better understand the products and evaluate it with the public and provide recommendations back to the agency so that we can better serve the American public, because that's our end goal at the end of the day. And so after those good 5 years, I was brought here to the University of Illinois in these two unique departments to now actually create a much broader field for it, not just have singular researchers, but really the U of I is one of the first programs in the country that are integrating both weather and communication at the same time and not treating it as an afterthought. I think this is a positive for our field going forward because, now meteorologists will have training in both science and communication from the get-go, and I think that'll really help us out in reaching the public and enhancing safety.
Is there anything, so I've been doing, like I said, for a while. I'm just going to bring up a specific example.
Sure.
Like the Storm Prediction Center severe weather outlooks of when I go on the air and I say, hey, there's a marginal risk, there's a slight risk, there's an enhanced risk, there's a moderate risk, there's a high risk. I think there's been a lot of talk in the meteorology world about, are those the right terms? Is that the right stuff? How do you feel about that? What have you kind of come across? Do those words, do the public get that? I think in some parts of the country they do, maybe in other parts they don't. What are your kind of thoughts on that, on the whole SPC outlook that we talk about a lot and show on TV a ton?
I love how you bring this up because this was my very first research project, and it was inspired. I was previously a radio meteorologist, a bilingual radio meteorologist, and I was giving out these terms to my own public, and they were also just as confused. Like in Spanish, it was even worse. Like how do we even go about communicating this? And so we interviewed the Spanish-speaking community to kind of test the Spanish language versions of them, and we ended up finding that we definitely need to modify those categories a little bit because they're not currently communicating the risk in a categorical way. And so in Spanish, we were able to change it to minimum level 1, low level 2, moderate level 3, high level 4, and extreme level 5. And we move forward with those recommendations, and now they're being used in bilingual television networks across the country. And that gave us the opportunity to poke them, the SPC, and say, hey, why don't we try that out in English? And so now we're sending out the same survey to English speakers across the country to see whether that's a new solution. And so we're not only...
Do you think that'll work? Do you think there can be change at that level? Because listen, listen, the folks there, they do a fantastic job and everything, but there is always, I guess, a hesitation to change.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And here's the thing. With all these government agencies, like NOAA, there sometimes might be a reluctance to, but here's the cool part about social science research is that it's evidence-based, it's science. And so whenever we come back with these survey results and we say, here's a nationwide representation of the country, and here's how they're currently feeling, and here's the data. As scientists, it's much harder to say no to those kinds of changes. And so the fact that they were able to even willingly change it in Spanish gave us a really good indication of where our field's headed. There's a lot more open minds about this, and if we present it as scientific fact, then it's much harder to refute at that point. And so, we're going to continue to push on these studies, and I think this wonderful field of weather communication can find some really good, interesting ways to continue to advance our science in that way. Because it's not just about advancing forecasting products, but also how the public consumes it overall.
How the public gets it there. You talked briefly there about some of the multilingual stuff that you've been a part of. Tell me a little bit more about that in the messaging that you've been trying to help out with.
Yeah, multilingual risk communication is so important to me. I grew up in a Spanish-speaking community, and I was often the one translating to all my family. It's what inspired me to try to go into the bilingual broadcast field initially. And even present day, 68.7 million Americans speak a language other than English at home. That's 1 in 5 Americans present day, and that number is only expected to grow to nearly 1 in 3 of Spanish speakers by 2060. So I always tell everybody, it's not a matter of if, but when that becomes more consequential in our emergency risk communication system. We have been able to trace fatalities and casualties related to language inequities for the last couple of decades, and they keep happening not because the forecast's inaccurate, but because the message wasn't communicated in a language that people understand. And I know we can come from various backgrounds and perspectives, but I think we can all agree that in disasters, everyone deserves a chance to stay safe. And even here locally in Champaign County, the Champaign area, the jurisdiction of the National Weather Service, 7% of folks speak a language other than English at home. And so we can do more to reach out to these folks because, they also are craving weather information, and sometimes it really can be a matter of life or death.
Perfect. That's fantastic. Well, keep up the good work on that there. And this is kind of go back just a little bit on kind of some of the different messaging. So let's say there's a tornado warning in Champaign County. Some people turn to the TV. Some people turn to radio. Some people want an outdoor warning siren. Some people want a weather radio. Some people want an app notification. So there are so many things, and maybe all of them aren't consistent, especially when it comes to like weather or like outdoor warning sirens and stuff. Yeah. Because like it'll warn for one thing here and another thing here. Do you feel like that's kind of something that needs to be cleaned up a little bit? You think?
Yeah, there can be. So consistency is actually a very big theme that's explored in weather communication research, and we divide it up between internal and external consistency. Yeah, the message should be straightforward from across the board. If everyone's going to say that there's a tornado warning issued, everyone needs to be, all hands on deck on that message and move forward with it, because even one source says that it's already expired when it's not. That can cause a lot of confusion right away. But I do think sirens and warnings both serve a purpose. The way we define them is we differentiate alerts and warnings. Alerts just capture your attention. That's what a siren does. It just rings, and it kind of gets you out of your loop, and you're like, something's happening, but I don't know what. Warning messages not only capture your attention, but they give you protective action guidance. And so I think both have a role in our emergency communication system, but there is a point as to there should be consistent among one another. The messages should be clear, and we should all be unified under one. And I think, Champaign County has done a very wonderful job with that. I've visited the local emergency management office. Everyone has a very close working relationship, and I really do admire that here locally, even in the 1 year I've been here so far.
Do you know much about the Joplin tornado that occurred, the EF5 Joplin tornado? So I worked down close to that mark in Springfield, Missouri when that happened. One of the things they found out, they did all the research after, the social scientists and whatnot, talking about why people didn't take, warnings, why did they didn't take shelter there. And it was, I've had tornado warnings all my life and nothing's ever happened. What can I do to get Jake and Nancy that are out there that have had 1,000 tornado warnings and nothing's ever happened to make them take it a little bit more seriously? Because it seems like it has to happen to them. Right. And after it happens to them, they go, oh, you know what? I'll take it more seriously. But sometimes that makes it too late.
Yeah, no, 100%. And we've actually, the Joplin tornado is actually the reason why I ended up working in NOAA in the first place. That was the birth of where really a lot of social science research came to light, where people were like, we need to really advance something to address this. And so how NOAA has been trying to tackle this issue has been by trying to modernize the tornado warning system. So, at present day, as we experience here, just a couple of tornado warnings here locally, the National Weather Service issues one, and then they reissue it every 15 15 to 20 minutes or so. But during my time at NOAA, we were exploring a concept called threats in motion, where the tornado warning moves along with the storm in real time. We now have the capacity to do something like that, and also have the capacity to add probabilities to tornadoes. Now, we're still studying that.
Yeah. Sure.
But we're trying to use our newer technology to see if we can modernize these so that they don't just pop in and out, and you can have a more accurate measure where the tornado is really headed, so that it can prompt more people to take protective action. Because during Joplin, those tornado warnings can sometimes, if it's affecting one part of the county, it affected everybody, and so all the sirens were ringing. And so we're trying to find better ways to communicate that by either using probabilities or have these tornado warnings move in real time. And I've been studying that, surveying National Weather Service forecasters. So far, so good. And so even in the next couple of decades, we could see a modernization of those products, and you could even see it here locally in years to come. And hey, you heard it here first.
It's really cool. So I'll tell you what, we're running out of time here. Fascinated with some of the research you're doing. You think you can come back and see us maybe in a few months down the road? Maybe we can kind of touch on some more stuff you've learned, some of your research and whatnot?
Yeah, no, I'd love to.
Okay.
Our class is doing a fieldwork class, connecting with the local community, asking them weather questions. So hey, you might run into them along the way too.
Perfect. Fantastic. Ladies and gentlemen, big thanks here to Joseph Trujillo-Falcon. Am I close?
That's perfect.
Okay. Listen, I appreciate you coming in. Thank you so much. Keep up the good work over there at the U of I. And again, I'm going to take you up on that offer to bring you back here and talk some more. All right, guys, that is wrapping up the show here Behind the Forecast. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time.